One of my patients, a 72-year-old man, once looked at me and said, "Doc, I've been doing it the same way for 5 decades, but lately, something just doesn't feel right." He wasn't dealing with illness. He hadn't started any new medications, but there was something quietly wearing down his body. And it wasn't the act of masturbation itself, but how he was doing it. What he didn't realize was that his long-standing habits were quietly affecting his heart, his prostate, and even his ability to feel. I'm Dr. Edward King, a urologist who has spent over 60 years helping men over the age of 60 stay strong, keep their circulation healthy, and maintain confidence without shame, medication, or confusion. You've been told that masturbation is normal and even healthy, and that's true. But after 60, some private routines that once seemed harmless can slowly become harmful, and they don't always come with a warning. In this article, I'm going to walk you through 7 common mistakes older men often make when it comes to masturbation and how to fix them before they start draining your energy, hurting your performance, or interfering with your long-term health. Mistake number 6 is one that nearly every man I meet gets wrong, so don't skip that one. Before we begin, if this message resonates with you, don't forget to subscribe and tap the notification bell so you never miss another piece of honest, practical advice made for men in your stage of life. And if this is speaking to you already, type 1 in the comments. If not, type 0. Your feedback helps me make these conversations more useful. Let's start with the first mistake, one that's quietly reshaping the way your brain and body respond to pleasure, and yet it's more common today than ever before. Over the years, I've heard the same concern from countless men in their late 60s and 70s. They sit across from me, looking unsure, and say something like, "Doc, I just don't feel as much anymore. It's like my body's gone quiet, and I don't know what happened." When I ask them if they use pornography, the response is nearly always the same, a quiet nod and eyes that look down, not out of shame, but because they truly never considered it might be the problem. After 60, your brain's reward system, especially the circuits tied to dopamine, the chemical responsible for drive and pleasure, becomes less adaptable. Fast-paced, high-intensity adult content overwhelms that system with artificial stimulation. And when it happens regularly, the brain starts protecting itself by numbing its response. What once gave you a sense of warmth or arousal begins to feel dull or distant. The real connection, the spark that comes from natural intimacy, from real touch, starts to disappear. Your body may still function, but it doesn't react the same way. Even if you're otherwise healthy, your ability to truly connect or feel fades into the background, and many men blame their age. They think they've just slowed down. But in reality, it's not the calendar. It's overstimulation that's rewired how their body experiences pleasure. And if you don't take the time to retrain your brain's response system, this kind of numbness doesn't just go away. It can linger quietly for years, sometimes decades. So if you've noticed that touch doesn't feel the same, or you felt less connection or satisfaction, don't just chalk it up to age. That very first mistake may be the underlying cause. Now, what might surprise you is that the next mistake isn't about what you're watching, but where you're doing it. And the setting you think is private and harmless could actually be creating a slow decline in your body's function. At first glance, this one seems innocent, even practical. I've had many older men tell me, quietly and somewhat sheepishly, that the bathroom has become their safe zone. It's private, it's quiet, and no one interrupts. For many, it becomes the default space for release. But what they don't realize is that this habit, particularly when done seated on the toilet, may be silently working against their health. Here's why. As we age, blood circulation becomes one of the most vital functions to protect. It supports everything from prostate health to recovery after orgasm. But sitting for long periods, especially in that hunched, compact position, many take on the toilet restricts circulation in the pelvic area. It places pressure directly on the prostate, tenses the pelvic floor, and compresses nerves that are already more sensitive with age. In my practice, I've seen this play out more times than I can count. Men in their late 60s and 70s experiencing new symptoms, swelling, groin discomfort, dribbling after urination, or difficulty fully emptying the bladder. And yet they never consider that the root cause might be a private habit they've repeated for years. As someone who's seen the scans and heard the stories firsthand, I can say with confidence, that position can quietly trigger a cascade of issues that affect both urination and intimacy. The fix isn't difficult. It starts with awareness. If this resonates with you, try changing your environment. Stand, recline, lie down. Give your pelvic region the space to breathe and circulate. Because whether you feel it or not, your prostate is asking for relief, and it's time to listen. Now, if that surprised you, get ready, the next mistake is even more subtle, and it's something most men do automatically. It's not about your posture or even how often you do it. It's about how you treat the experience itself. This is one of the most common habits I see among older men, particularly those who've spent a lifetime under stress, keeping their emotions in check, or who've simply trained themselves to keep things quick and discreet. For them, self-pleasure becomes a task, something to finish, not something to feel. It's rushed, mechanical, and done without presence. But here's the reality. After 60, your body doesn't respond well to tension, whether it's physical strain or emotional pressure. I've had men sit in my office and say, "Doc, I just want to get it over with. I don't have the patience to take my time." And I understand where that comes from, years of being told to be quick, discreet, to not make a big deal of it. But here's the problem. When you rush, your nervous system doesn't relax, it braces. Your heart rate spikes, blood vessels tighten. The release you're looking for? It's cut short. Hormones like oxytocin, dopamine, and serotonin, the ones responsible for calm, connection, and clarity, don't get the chance to do their job. So yes, maybe you climax, but afterward, you feel empty, not rested, not satisfied, just spent. And that's not age. That's the body adapting to a pattern it's been trained into. Speed over sensation, urgency over intimacy. And the more you do it, the more that pattern gets reinforced. Your sensitivity drops. Arousal becomes harder to hold. Even with a partner, things feel off, too slow, too disconnected. And quietly, you start to believe something's wrong with you. But nothing is wrong. The truth is, your body hasn't forgotten how to feel. It's just been rushed past the point of feeling. So slow it down. Let every moment be intentional. You still have the capacity for deep, rich sensation if you give it space to breathe. There's no deadline here, no goal, just presence. And while we're on the topic of presence, there's something else most men overlook, a part of the body that quietly powers everything from erections to bladder control. And yet, most don't even know it exists. But once you understand it, it could completely change how you approach your health. Most men go their whole lives without hearing those words, pelvic floor. But if you're over 60, it's one of the most important parts of your body to pay attention to. It's the support system beneath your bladder, your prostate, your sexual organs, the engine that quietly powers your function and control. And when it's ignored, things start to go downhill, slowly, subtly, and often without warning. I remember one man in particular, late 60s, used to be a runner, took care of himself, proud of his independence. He told me, "Doc, I eat right, I work out, but something's off." What he didn't realize was that his pelvic floor had been slowly losing strength. Decades of sitting, stress held in the belly, and a lack of engagement had caused those muscles to go quiet. And the result? Lower erection quality, dribbling after urination, less sensation during climax. Nothing sudden, just a gradual drift away from what used to be normal. And here's where it connects to masturbation. If you touch yourself without involving your core, or worse, if you push or strain, you're not just missing out on potential strength, you're putting pressure where it doesn't belong. Over time, this weakens the muscles that should be supporting your prostate, your bladder, and your sexual function. It leads to issues that feel like aging but are really just disuse. The fix? Simple, gentle awareness. The next time you feel arousal building, try tightening the muscles you'd use to stop a stream of urine. Just a light engagement, not a squeeze. Do it regularly. Over time, this tiny act can restore strength, improve control, and most importantly, rebuild your confidence. And speaking of balance, this next mistake, has less to do with how you touch yourself and more with how often. Because too much or too little can both cause real problems, and most men have no idea what the sweet spot actually looks like. Let's talk about that next. This is a subject many older men hesitate to talk about. Some worry they're doing it too often. Others quietly wonder if they've gone too long without. And somewhere between shame, confusion, and outdated advice, most men over 60 end up walking a lonely, uncertain path. What I've seen in my practice is this: both extremes can cause harm. When a man masturbates too frequently out of habit, boredom, or unresolved emotion, his body often can't keep up. Energy levels drop, prostate tissue becomes irritated, and over time, he may notice it takes longer to recover, or that his interest in real intimacy fades. It becomes less about desire and more about routine, and that dulls the nervous system and drains vitality. On the other end, some men stop altogether. Maybe it's due to medication, health concerns, religious guilt, or just the belief that they're too old now. But what they don't realize is that the body, like any system, needs regular circulation. Sexual arousal, even without climax, helps keep blood flowing to the genitals, nourishes nerve endings, and maintains erectile strength. When that's absent for too long, atrophy sets in, desire fades, and the door to connection, both physical and emotional, begins to close without warning. There's no perfect number, but for most men over 60, 1 to 2 times per week, done consciously, with presence and care, is often the sweet spot. It allows the body to maintain circulation, restore hormonal rhythm, and keep the system alive without exhaustion. Remember, this isn't about rules, it's about listening. Your body speaks quietly in older age. The key is learning to hear it. And yet, even when frequency is right, one common mistake can still undo all the progress. It's something most men do instinctively, without realizing it's damaging their nerves and changing the very shape of their manhood. Let me show you what that is. This is one of the most overlooked mistakes I see in older men, and one of the most damaging. I can't count how many patients have sat across from me, frustrated and confused, saying things like, "Doc, I don't feel as much as I used to," or "It's taking more effort than ever." And behind those words is often one silent habit they never thought twice about: using too much pressure when they touch themselves. I get it. As sensitivity decreases with age, the natural response is to grip tighter, press harder, or try to recreate that lost feeling with intensity. But here's the truth your body is trying to tell you. Force doesn't restore feeling, it destroys it. The nerves in your penis are delicate, especially in your 60s, 70s, and beyond. Years of intense pressure, excessive force, or repeated reliance on hard surfaces can quietly cause lasting physical harm. Tiny tears in delicate tissue, loss of flexibility, and even internal scarring. These hidden injuries can eventually lead to changes in shape, reduced circulation, and pain during arousal. It's not just uncomfortable, it can reshape your anatomy in permanent ways. This kind of damage creeps in slowly. It doesn't strike overnight. It builds gradually, almost invisibly, until one day you realize something has changed, and by then, the harm is often already done. But there's a deeper layer to all of this. When pleasure starts to feel like a battle, something you have to push through rather than enjoy it, creates a disconnect. The joy fades. What should be a moment of healing turns into something forced. And that mental tension doesn't just affect your mindset, it alters how your body receives pleasure. So start choosing a more tender path. Your body deserves a softer approach. Your future self will appreciate it. And while we're on the topic of disconnection, let's look at one final mistake. It goes beyond technique, beyond the physical. It strikes at the heart of emotional well-being, and it's something far too many older men silently fall into. This is the most subtle mistake and often the most heartbreaking. It's not about frequency or location. It's about your emotional state in the moment. As time passes, many older men begin to see self-touch as just another habit, mechanical, joyless, routine. What once brought comfort or connection becomes a quiet ritual of escape, not out of desire, but out of habit, done without feeling, without thought, without presence. I've had heartfelt conversations with men in their 60s, 70s, and older like Raymond, 74, or Leonard, 68, who've said, "It just doesn't feel the same anymore." Or, "I don't even know why I still do it." Their bodies still respond, but their hearts, they're no longer engaged. There's no warmth, no intimacy, no sense of purpose, and that emptiness leaves a mark. Over time, this emotional disconnect rewires the nervous system. The body may still go through the motions, but the healing hormones, the oxytocin, the dopamine didn't flow the way they used to. The result? A flat experience, a shadow of what it could be. Worse still, it reinforces the belief that pleasure is something isolated, silent, without meaning. But it doesn't have to be that way. Even solo touch can be meaningful, sacred, a moment of deep connection with yourself. It's a chance to honor the body you still have, not with shame, but with gratitude. Your body still feels, it still matters, and it still deserves to be approached with care. Now that we've explored all 7 mistakes, it's time to bring it all together. Because real change begins when you not only recognize what's gone wrong, but start rebuilding from a place of respect, strength, and renewal. No matter your age, that connection is still possible. Let's talk about what comes next. Losing sight of the bigger picture. Your body still has something to say. If you're still reading, I want to speak to you direct, not as a physician, but as someone who truly honors the path you've taken. Over the years, I've met countless men who've struggled quietly. They blamed age, circumstance, even themselves. But the real issue? No one ever showed us how to care for our bodies as they grow older, especially when it comes to sexuality, self-pleasure, and meaningful connection. You've just explored the 7 most common mistakes men tend to make in this part of life. And none of them stem from laziness or ignorance. They come from routine, from repeating what used to work without realizing the body evolves. Circulation slows. The prostate becomes more sensitive. The nervous system demands more gentleness. And the heart? It starts craving not just sensation but deeper meaning. Let's make something clear. There is absolutely nothing wrong with self-touch. There's no shame in seeking comfort, release, or even quiet joy through your own body. What becomes harmful is when we stop paying attention, when we rush, when we disconnect, when we assume that the same approach will always bring the same result. Each of those mistakes, overusing pornography, ignoring posture, moving too quickly, neglecting the pelvic floor, pushing too hard or too little, applying excessive pressure, or turning the act into something robotical, share one root cause: disconnection. And that is the deeper threat. Not aging, not desire, but the slow drift away from your own body, from your own sense of pleasure, from your own life force. But here's the hope. It's not too late. It never is. Your body is still reaching out. Maybe more softly. Maybe with more patience. Maybe with unfamiliar signals. But it's still here, and it still deserves your attention, your gentleness, your care. Think of it like a cherished vintage car. It needs different maintenance now, a slower hand, more respect, but that doesn't make it less powerful. In fact, it makes it more valuable. So, where do you begin? Start with the smallest steps. Treat your body with kindness. Let curiosity guide you instead of habit. Let presence replace performance. Don't chase an outcome, embrace the experience. Slow down, breathe, listen. And above all, don't give up on connection with yourself or with others. I've seen men in their 60s, 70s, even early 80s reclaim their vitality, their intimacy, their sense of power once they stopped thinking of aging as a decline and started seeing it as a transformation. You deserve that transformation. You deserve to feel again. You deserve a life full of awareness, strength, and quiet dignity, even in the moments no one else sees. Because in the end, this isn't just about correcting old habits. It's about rediscovering that quiet strength still living inside you. And trust me, it's still there. So take what you've learned here, move forward with intention, and don't forget, your best years aren't in the past. They're in the way you choose to show up for yourself now, with compassion, with clarity, and with quiet confidence. If this resonated with you, please give it a like, subscribe, and share it with another man who could use this message today.